Hey, what is up, guys? It is the OTO podcast. We are back with episode 15. We've been at it for a minute now. I'm with my co-host, Bannon Crowley, next man up, MMA. He can introduce himself now.
How's it going, ladies, gentlemans, ladies with gentle hands, old people with pension plans? Happy Thanksgiving almost. We should have a good episode today after a great card in the great state of New York, in the great city of New York. Um, so yeah, I mean, we might as well just dive right into this, man. UFC 322. We had two great championship fights. We've been hyping this card up for a while, and in the main event, we saw Islam Makhachev go out there and unfortunately dominate Jack Della Maddalena. We got a few questions that we can answer throughout this. Was JDM hurt? Can anyone beat Islam? Islam's pound for pound rankings. What's next for him? What's next for both of these guys? But if you want to start with the fight overall, this was just domination. JDM, I don't know exactly what his game plan was going into this. We know how good he is of a striker, but Islam just completely dominated him. And I think he broke him mentally because we saw towards the end of the fight that JDM's coaches were kind of like, keep your head up. You're still in this fight, even though he really wasn't. But by that fourth and fifth round, you could just tell that he was kind of mentally exhausted.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if it was only mentally. I'm kind of concerned for JDM if it was. I've heard maybe he cracked his shin, maybe he broke a rib. I'm not sure what it was, but he was definitely hurt. He was wincing in pain that entire fight, which is not what you want to see. I've heard he tore his ACL before the fight. Who really knows? Realistically, we're probably never gonna know. There's gonna stuff will come out from his camp, from manager Ali and his camp. So it was a tough fight overall. Islam dominated. I'll be the first to say it. I thought JDM had the size advantage, would have the strength advantage, and through Craig Jones and Volk, maybe even have the wrestling advantage on the feet to contend with Islam's amazing grappling. But I mean, he was outstruck 140 to 30. He didn't defend a single takedown, something he's been good at in the past against Gilbert Burns. He's shown in the past that he's well-rounded and also a top three boxer in the UFC. And he didn't get, I don't know if it was a leg injury or what. He wasn't showing anything on the feet. I think he had a jab that he was relying on, but nothing else really was going for him. And I was very disappointed to say the least, but I think in reality it means Islam is very good. He moves up. JDM is the bigger guy. He's taller, he's naturally heavier, and Islam is not used to that. He's fought in a lot of former featherweights like Volk, like Charles, and now even Moicano. And then he struggled with Poirier, who I think was pretty washed at that time. And then he comes out and dominates JDM at 170. So although he's not an official double champ in my book, he had the two belts and he was walking around. It was cool to see that. So I'm disappointed that JDM didn't come close to winning that fight, but I think on another note, Islam is dominant and he will be maybe for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that, looking at this fight, very similar to what we saw in a previous championship fight earlier this year in Dricus versus Kamzat, just absolutely destroyed on the ground in this one. But Islam was still getting, I would say, a good amount more shots than we saw from Kamzat. Kamzat was going more for those submissions. He had him in the crucifix for half the fight. But yeah, I mean, Islam just is insane, right? I mean, you could argue he's the best pound for pound in the UFC right now. I think as much as I like Ilya, I think you could probably say that Islam is for now, and then, we'll have to see what happens in Ilya's next performance. But these two guys, like, I think if you're talking about the two top guys in the UFC, I don't think there's any debate between these two. And one thing that I do want to ask you first is with this win at welterweight, and we'll talk about so many other great welterweights after this, and Ilya moving up to 155, he said he would move up again to welterweight to fight Islam. But I almost feel like with Islam winning this fight and what we saw from the rest of this card, we might be further away from that fight than we were before.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a shame that Islam versus Ilya never happened at 155. That's the fight that I really wanted. I think it's the biggest, most talented fight. I mean, it's a kind of mirrored version of McGregor versus Khabib, and probably the most talented fight since then. So the future for Islam is kind of bleak in terms of the fans' perspective, not for Islam. Dana's been talking about Usman coming back a lot. He's been waiting out for a while, but when you look at Islam's prospective contenders at 170, which I assume he will stay at 170.
Yeah.
I mean, Ilya is just way too small to move up there. There's no way. Maybe Jake Paul, Joshua style, they could have a catch weight in the middle. But realistically, Islam's gonna stay at 170. It's a bigger division, but when you look at the names that he might be fighting, he might have an easy run until his retirement, if we're being honest. Usman, I would put money down that he's the next man up. I think Dana wants that. I think Usman has been begging for it. I think that Usman has been sitting out for so long. He's clearly not in his peak, but he's still very talented. He showed it against Buckley, and he's really only capable of fighting once a year now. So why not have his retirement fight against Islam? It will look good in the record books. No matter how Islam does, or no matter how Usman does, it will make him look good, even if he loses. But I would like to see guys like Shavkat and Usman just fight each other. Why not? I'm so sick of guys waiting out an entire year to fight. So, my mind is on Usman next for the belt, and then maybe Morales could be a sneaky contender there. But what do you think is next for Islam?
Yeah, I mean, he did fight in June, so I guess by the time I don't know, I guess it depends on if he wants to fight before Ramadan again. But yeah, it would be about a year in between. It is interesting though that you bring up Usman. I know that a lot of people have been clamoring for this one, and unfortunately, Usman's legacy. If you ask Dana White, he is the best welterweight all time. But unfortunately, within the past few years, those Leon Edwards losses really don't look too great on his resume now with how good Leon Edwards is at this current state, which isn't very. But it is unfortunate for him. I still think he is definitely one of the best. I love Kamaru Usman. So I would like to see the fight. It would be interesting though for his legacy, I guess. You know, you can go up and I'm sure they would market this because obviously, as we know, Dana says that he is the best welterweight all time. So they would kind of make this be that would be the marketing tactic, right? You know, you have a guy in Kamaru Usman, right? And at 170, we know how good he was. And then you have a guy in Islam who was one of the best at 155 ever. So this would be a good kind of legacy fight for him at welterweight. It does remind me of someone else that moved up, got a second belt, beat a young guy, and then went up and then fought arguably the greatest of all time in that division. Um,
Kevin Holland?
no, I think it would be
No.
John Jones when he fought
Oh,
Stipe.
oh.
So that would be pretty similar to this fight, whether we want to admit it or not. Does Kamaru Usman really deserve a championship fight? Probably not over a lot of these guys. But if he wants that retirement fight, if he's going to fight one more time, we're going to give him a championship fight, then I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC does that because of what we've seen in the past. And Islam deserves kind of everything coming to him. And if he wants that fight, then I think he should get that fight.
Yeah, the new era of welterweights are here, and they are here to stay. But Islam is now one of them, and he's the guy that they're all gonna have to take down. So, in one way, I'm fine with Usman fighting, hopefully retiring, getting out of there. I don't want people holding up the rankings any further, but the name now that we need to matchmake is Jack Della Maddalena. He's had a fast rise to the belt, and now sadly, he had to defend it against Islam. He beat Bilal in an insane fight, but what is next for JDM? There's so many options. Maybe some would call for a Kevin Holland rematch, but get Holland back in the rankings. But when you look at the prospective guys there, Carlos Prates is going to be atop of the rankings. Michael Morales, Buckley's there, Leon, Shavkat, Sean Brady, Bilal. It's weird matchups for JDM where he's beat half of them, and then the other half are the younger guys like Morales and Prates would be banger fights, but who knows if they're going to want to fight him this early in their career. So, what do you think is next for JDM?
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy that I feel like you didn't mention in Ian Gary, who, you know, if we're gonna put on a good fight, um, I feel like if Ian Gary wins this weekend against Bilal and it's confirmed that we have um, Islam versus Usman, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't run JDM versus Ian Gary if they're gonna wait for a championship fight. Like I think we can make a very easy case right now. If Islam beats Usman, right? I say you give the winner of Ian Gary versus Bilal against JDM, right? I feel like that's fair. JDM had a pretty good run before this, so I don't think he deserves an immediate rematch, but I don't think he should be fighting down that far. And then you give Michael Morales, give him some CP. That could be another number one contender fight. We also have to think of where Shavkat. Shavkat versus JDM be an absolute banger. I think at this point, anyone that JDM fights, I don't really want to see him fight Bilal again. I don't think they would do that. So I think that's kind of out of the question. But whoever they have him fight, I mean, whether it's a Buckley, whether it's Morales, whether it's Prates, whether it's Shavkat, whether it's Ian Gary. I'm very interested in pretty much every single one of those fights.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's so much to wait for, but speaking of waiting, Shavkat cannot wait any longer. He keeps
Hmm.
talking on Twitter, calling everyone out, congratulating everyone for their fights. Why is he not in there? He had such a close fight with Ian Gary. It was a really fun fight to watch. And Ian Gary, to his credit, keeps accepting fights and keeps taking very damaging fights that if Carlos Prates almost knocked him out in there, he had Ian Gary crawling away. He won that fight. Shavkat, such a close fight. So Ian Gary's taking fights. He's moving up in Shavkat. I know he says he has injuries. Who knows what he really has? It seems like he's a guy that's always going to be injured. But either way, Shavkat. Oh, yeah.
I did get some word today that Shavkat's ready to go from what I've been hearing.
Really?
I've been hearing
So,
that Shavkat's ready to go. So
so
I think
who's next for Shavkat then?
that and if they're not going to give him a title fight, which at this point I don't think he
I
deserves.
don't think he deserves
I don't
one.
think he deserves a title fight. The same thing that I've said before. I don't think that from what we've seen before with Mavzar just walking in, he didn't go into that last fight.
Yeah.
I don't think he deserves a title fight too. If you're waiting, if you have the opportunity and you don't take it, whether it's due to injury or not, it's not his fault. Then I don't think he should get a title fight immediately.
I will
But
say I think the fight to make, maybe before you give yours, is 100% you do Sean Brady versus Shavkat. Sean Brady beat Leon to get that top contender spot. Obviously, he got destroyed by Morales, but I think his grappling versus Shavkat would be a very fun fight for two guys that really haven't won a fight in a little bit.
yeah, I would have offered up the JDM fight as well. But I guess if you want him to fight soon, if he says he's ready to go now, would there be would it be bad to have him go up
Colby?
against Buckley? Oh.
Colby Covington, maybe?
Yeah, no,
Buckley even said,
that would definitely be an option. But I think Buckley doesn't have a fight. If he's really ready to go in like January, I don't think he's going to be fighting any of the guys that fought this weekend. Actually, who knows? Him versus Michael Morales could be cinema. But one more question before we end
Mhm.
this. A little interesting one. Now that we have seen it, now that he's a two division champion, now that I think Islam has officially entered not the top 10, but the GOAT conversation, I think that's pretty fair to say. Like one of the best fighters in the UFC ever. Where do you have him above Habib now? I do.
I also do. Not just I thought of this right after the fight ended. I saw Khabib carrying him around, and I thought about their legacies together. And when I think of Khabib, it's really a name that maybe because of the McGregor fight, it goes down as like a legendary guy that was
Aura.
undefeated. Never exactly
Aura.
aura, some would call it that. He never lost. But when you look at his fights, I mean, Quinta is what got him the belt. He wasn't fighting the best guys, and then he fought in a massive fight because of McGregor's star power, and then he retires soon after that. So I would have liked to see Khabib stick around longer. I think Islam is a much more defined guy. He's fought in the best strikers, the best wrestlers. Islam has better striking than Khabib, and he could even have better wrestling and grappling than Khabib. Who knows? But at this point, Khabib is just not on the top of my list for GOATs in the UFC. Don't even know if he's top 10. I don't know if that's crazy to say for all time, But I think this was the fight that puts Islam above Khabib because also Islam, like Bobby Green, uh, or sorry, King Green for you, Renato
Yep.
Moicano, and an old Poirier aren't exactly. I know there's names like Volk before that, Charles. He has great wins, but there's a few where I think Islam is two or three more amazing wins away from some uncomfortable conversations. But for me, 100% above Khabib.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, the main difference is, a lot of people would say, well, Khabib never lost, but and obviously Islam got knocked out by Pantoja, but that was like 10 years ago now. So, um hopefully someone gets that in the comments maybe.
You're gonna
But
get a hate comment for that. That wasn't
yeah.
true, buddy. That never happened.
Hey, well, real ones understand that. If you have 15 plus hours of screen time every day, you'll understand that joke. But
Exactly.
like you said, some of these fights, Poirier, Moicano, maybe not the best, but two wins against Alexander Volkanovski, I think, speak for itself as well. Obviously, Khabib beat McGregor, but that run that he had, he beat Volk twice. He beat Charles Oliveira, beat Dan Hooker, beat Armin Sarukian. Yeah, they were a lot younger then, but still, I mean, Islam has some great wins so far in his career. And if he continues to defend this belt, he could go be one of the greatest ever. But I do have him above Khabib as well. But yeah, that's it for now for the lightweight division, or I guess the welterweight. I'm so used to saying lightweight for Islam,
Shout out to
but
Ilya.
yeah. Shout out to Ilya.
And that is also a fight that could go crazy for the record books, Ilya versus Islam. Sadly, Islam ducked him. It might never happen. But speaking of record-breaking fights, we had Valentino the Bullet Shevchenko take on and destroy Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili was moving up a weight class, moving up to flyweight, where Shevchenko has been dominant. Only, I guess, the Grasso loss is her only recent stain on that, but she's been absolutely dominant. Weili was dominant at strawweight, and I'm heartbroken that Weili is without a belt and Mackenzie Dern is a champ. That's just not what I want to see for the women's UFC.
I mean, I love to see that as well. Um, I thought Wei Li Zhang was going to come in here with, I thought she was going to come in here and win this fight. I'll be honest, right? I think we talked about this last time. But Valentina Shevchenko was just too big, just dominated her. And one thing that I guess we could bring up is that in both of these championship fights, I would say what? I think you could ask anyone. It was 5-0 in both fights. Undisputed. Both of the winners just went out there absolutely dominated. And I think Valentina was just too big. I think in both of their primes, I would have taken Shevchenko. Obviously, Shevchenko's older now at 37 years old. So that's why I was a little hesitant, but she just went out there and dominated this fight. And when we look back, like you said, at her losses, I mean, two losses to Amanda Nunes, who might be the GOAT, and then that one loss to Grasso, and then also the draw, which kind of prolonged that whole like I guess we had three fights. We didn't really need three fights for that rivalry. But yeah, I mean Shevchenko continues to dominate. Who knows? Maybe she'll move up to 135 and fight Kayla Harrison, but probably not. I think she'll probably stay, defend her belt. There's some great fighters in that division that I know you can highlight too after for her next fights. But for Zhang Weili, is she going to go back down and challenge Mackenzie Dern? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I don't know if she has it in her to beat Mackenzie Dern, but I'll let you take this one.
That was a lot of just ridiculous statements you just said in a row right there. But I think Zhang Wei Li she did not take a lot of damage. She should be making that fake champ, Mackenzie Dern, take that belt off and give it back to Zhang Wei Li as soon as possible. That is Wei Li's belt. No one in that division can touch her right now. So I think she should be all over a fight as soon as she can. She really didn't take any damage. Shevchenko just looks so much bigger. She was just ragdolling her. Wei Li was trying to get it looked like maybe some judo throws. She was defending the throws and the takedowns well, and Shevchenko would just power through it and just take her down anyway, almost every time without failure. But Zhang Weili, what's next for her? 100% Mackenzie Dern. Go back down, show the levels to the game. But man, I was impressed with Shevchenko. I thought Weili's striking was on a whole nother level, and I mean, it could be we didn't really get to see it at all because of Shevchenko dominating her. And when you look at flyweight, I think Shevchenko has a few more names she's going to cross off. Natalia Silva and Erin Blanchfield, I do think, are
Hmm.
probably the best contenders in the division. Grasso and Fiorot, I just don't want to see them fight Shevchenko again.
She already beat Furo, so we don't need to see that.
Yeah, we're done with that. Maybe Wang Kong, a little Muay Thai rematch if she makes her way up the rankings. But
Maybe Molly McCann can come back.
hey, Meatball Molly. But when you look at the women's divisions, it's really, I mean, maybe you could say this like every year, but it's just still not in a great spot. And when you look at the top of the top, you have Shevchenko beating Wei Li. The only other names that are on the top of the mountain is Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes. If you want to say she's in the UFC right now, it seems like that
Mm.
fight is 100% happening. I don't know any other fight that would even be booked at bantamweight. Raquel Pennington can only fight for the belt and lose so many times. But Kayla Harrison versus Nunes, whether you like women's MMA or not, that is going to be an amazing fight. That's like Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir. Like there's so much, there's storylines there. There's two beasts in the top of the game. And Shevchenko versus Harrison, Shevchenko versus Nunes, you're telling me that wouldn't be a banger right now? Maybe to go out, retirement fight.
Yeah.
Um, but when you look at the women's rankings. I know you have hundreds of notes here I'm looking at
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
Shevchenko beats Whaley. Maybe Nunez or Harrison, whoever wins there. Shevchenko, is she the current GOAT of women's MMA? Who's the top of the game?
Yeah, well, first I thought you were going to say Brock Lesnar versus Mark Henry, but we'll continue continue on this. But yeah, I mean, I said before that I think if Zhang Weili goes in here and wins this fight, I think she would probably be up there for the GOAT. Um, Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, would that become the greatest women's fighter of all time? Maybe. I think combat sports wise, if you include everything, probably yes for Kayla Harrison with the gold medals and stuff. But when we talk about the UFC and MMA, Valentina Shevchenko is definitely up there. If not the best, I mean, we'll have to see what happens with Amanda Nunes. I know it'll always be tough because, she was one of the first to do it and continued to do it very, very well. And obviously, there's some younger fighters right now, guys, well, I guess women, like Mackenzie Dern, who knows, maybe she defends the belt 5 times in a row and becomes the GOAT.
Moving on. Another amazing fight was Michael Morales versus Sean Brady. A banger knockout by Michael Morales. Another one of these welterweights that has just so much talent, so much power. And I don't like to say it so simply, but he's just an athletic freak. He has a
Mm.
great wingspan. He looked way bigger than Sean Brady. And Sean Brady, I know he's known for his grappling and not really at all for his striking. Someone that got knocked out by Bilal not too long ago. But Morales just went in there like Brady didn't have any arms, and he just punched him in the face a whole lot and knocked him out. And Brady had no answers to that. And that was the expected outcome, if I'm being completely honest here. I didn't see that fight going any other way. Maybe Sean Brady locking in a sub after taking some damage, but Michael Morales is very, very good. And something I believe Dana was saying earlier before the fights was that Michael Morales, if he wins that fight, goes out there and dominates Brady, the number two contender, he could be in line for a title shot next. Uh, how do you think that fight went? Was it expected for you? And do you think Morales is worthy of the title shot?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of this guy. I think Michael Morales has been fantastic. I'm glad he finally got the opportunity to go out there and do something on a big stage, kind of restricted to the fight nights before. But now finally getting that opportunity to show out in front of a big crowd on this card and absolutely did that. And against a guy that I know a lot of people I feel like within the past year and year and a half have been really big Sean Brady believers for some reason. I think he's good. But at the same point, a guy that got knocked out by Bilal Muhammad, I couldn't get over that fact. Um, so with that being I guess now he has 2 losses to his career with Morales and Bilal Muhammad. But I still think he could definitely go out there and be a contender in this division. At 32 years old, he is on a bit of the older side compared to a lot of these guys that are coming up now. I don't think he's necessarily in that old guard that we're talking about that's kind of moving away with guys like Usman. But I don't know where he falls in this division next. Like we said before, maybe he fights a Shavkat next. But if he loses to Shavkat, he might get kind of bottomed out in the mix a little bit because of these other guys coming up as well. Guys like Ian Gary that we talked about. Guys like Prates, who we will talk about. Even Gabriel Bonfim, at 19 and 1, just had a big win against Randy Brown. He's only 28 years old as well. He's going to continue to climb up the ranks. So there's definitely a lot of good younger guys. Morales, definitely one of him. I think I was really hoping that if JDM won, we would have seen JDM versus Morales for the belt. I still think we can see that fight at some point, but the striking in that would be absolutely insane. But I think Morales probably did more to prove to get a title shot than Usman did 5 months ago, beating Buckley by decision, even though it was a great win. But I think Morales does deserve the next title shot. I don't think he will get it. It will be interesting to see who he will fight, though, if they do go with Usman versus Islam. But I don't know. I think maybe they'll even just have him fight JDM. I think at some point we have to have that fight because that's probably the highest skilled striking match we can have in this division.
Yeah, I agree. And one note on Sean Brady is that I think when he went out there and dominated Leon, people kind of eyes they turned and they're like, "Oh, this guy's really good." But I think Leon is just really bad. And
Yeah.
the Protest Leon fight really showed that where a power jab knocked Leon off his feet like a cartoon character, like he slipped on a banana peel, and like he got knocked to the deck. And I think Leon. Yes, he did have that, headshot dead. That was cool. That was cool in the moment. We can all admit that was very cool. But his entire career, I think he has what, three finishes in the UFC. One of them was one of his first fights. The Leon head kick is also one of them, which was lucky, for being honest. That was last second. And then Leon is a decision merchant the rest of his career. He's like a point fighting counter striker, which he wins decisions. That's good for him. He goes out there, dominates Colby. It turns out Colby sucks. He goes out there, gets dominated by Bilal. Bilal's actually pretty good. He gets dominated by Sean Brady. Sean Brady's all right. Like, and then now he gets dominated by Prates. I think Leon, not saying he was never good, but I just don't think he was ever great. I do think that even though he was a champ, he had a lot of energy behind him. I just don't think he was ever great. And I think what's next for Leon is a steep fall off, a Kobe Covington-esque fall off, where he's realizing now that he isn't as good as he thinks, I think. And this is a three-rounder for him. He thinks, I think. I think that he thinks that I think that he's finished. And this is a three-round fight where I thought we were going to see a much more active Leon. I did take Protez by an early KO because Leon just sits back and he gives up on himself. Sean Brady stifled him. He
Mhm.
had no answers. He gave up, shot for a takedown, got destroyed. I think he's so mentally weak in there. He gives up so fast that he can never be good again. I really do just think that. So maybe you have him fight Colby. Loser gets sent to street beefs. Winner gets cut either way. But Leon's finished. But on another note, Carlos Prates is the next man up. He has so much power in that striking. He's just a dominating striker. And he gave Ian Gary, who's a very good striker on his own right, a ton of trouble on the feet. He was a few jabs away from finishing that fight by KO with Ian Gary. So I think Prates is proving that he's one of the best prospects. Is he the best fighting nerd? In my eyes, I think him and Silva are the top two. Rufi and Brajo, I think, are a step below that. But I mean, after Silva's loss, Prates might be the best fighting nerd. But I would like to see Prates get a huge boost up the rankings. Same thing with Morales. And I think there's a lot to come. Obviously, this is a welterweight heavy card, but I think there's so much for these young guys to do in the division.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to go over here. Like you said, Leon, I think mentally probably one of the weakest fighters in the UFC. And I think at this point, I don't know if he's going to be able to come back from that. I mean, it's just tough at this point with those three losses. Like you said, one of the luckiest kicks that we've ever seen against Usman in the first fight. In the second fight, I still think that was a draw. He got the point deducted in the third round. It should have been a 10-8 round, not a 9-9 round with that point deduction. And because Usman won that round, it should have been 47-47. I still don't think, I will never be convinced that Leon won that second fight. And then he went and beat Kobe Covington by decision. and just not a very inspiring performance from Colby Covington either. And then he got dropped on his head by Bilal, got choked out by Sean Brady, got knocked out by Prates. And I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen the pictures now of Leon on Carlos's back in the first round, and he just doesn't care. He's not threatened at all. Like, this is a world champion that defended the belt twice, and he just or three times, I guess, and he just doesn't even care. Like, it seems like he's become more of a laughing stock in this division, and I don't even know what you do for him next. Like, do you have him fight in a Kobe Covington rematch? He's getting pretty close to fighting Kevin Holland, which could be good for us. But yeah, I just don't really know. But on the other end, I know you've been a big fan of CP for a long time, and he went out there and had a great performance this weekend. A lot of people talked about what's next for him. Like we said, there's so many good fights in this division. I don't think there's any way they can mess the matchmaking up, no matter what they do. Um, I think no matter what we see fights going forward, there's a lot of guys that deserve it. So I'm pretty confident in whatever they decide to do next because there's so many good guys that I don't think they can mess it up.
Yeah, and going down to another guy he's at a fluctuating prospect status where you hear of him as he gets a head kick KO and Matt Frevola, and you're like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's a soldier. And then he gets slumped by Poirier. Who knows how good he truly is? But Benoit Saint-Denis, you had a name for him earlier, I think. Nickname?
I don't think it's appropriate for the channel.
Okay, not appropriate for the channel. It had
Yeah.
something with his BSD, but
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Benoit Saint-Denis is a beast, confirmed. I mean, this guy, he throws so much power and contempt in his striking, and we saw it where, I mean, I've said it so often, but Poirier was struggling a lot with Benoit Saint-Denis. I know he got knocked out. I know people say he had staph and blah blah blah, but Benoit Saint-Denis has looked great against everybody except your boy Renato Moicano. That was a very strange fight. Moicano, who knows how good he is either. But
Okay.
Saint Denis is an absolute beast. He's shown it in his last three fights. He's been knocking people out. He's been submitting people. He's a very well-rounded fighter. And when you look at the lightweight prospects, it's kind of like welter. We're like 6 months behind welterweight, where you have that old guard still staying at the top like 6 or 7 months behind it. And welterweight, we've seen it right now. Leon's done. I mean, if you want to call Sean Brady in there, but there's so many. Colby's done. The old guard's gone. Uh, uh, the start, Mad Thompson. But when you look at the lightweight division, Stephen Thompson, sorry. When you look at the lightweight division, the same thing is a few months behind that, where these older guys, Poirier's gone, Max Holloway, Charles, how many, Gaethje, these guys are retiring very soon, and Benoit Saint-Denis, Paddy Pimblett are some of the only prospects in the entire rankings, with Michael Chandler too. He still is one McGregor fight away. Please let that happen, and then he'll be back up for the belt. But Saint-Denis looks incredible, striking, incredible grappling. I think he is a top two prospect. I would say maybe even ahead of Rufi or I guess after their fight, in the lightweight division.
Yeah, I mean this division overall too, like BSD had those losses. He's had three straight wins. Now he's back to being a contender in this division. Um, and I think the interesting thing about this is before, at 155 and at 145, if Ilya had stayed there at 145, there's a lot of tough fights there. You got guys like Diego Lopez, Movsar, even Aljo. Tougher fights. Obviously, Alex is there too. He did beat him, but there were some tough fights. But now with Islam going up to 170, he has a lot of opponents that are younger that I think he could beat. But I would say it's still a tough division for him. At 155, I mean, BSD is great, right? But realistically, I don't see anyone besides Arman Sarukian that can beat Ilia Topuria at this point. I think he runs through pretty much everyone at the top of these rankings. He beat Charles. He beat Max. I think he would probably kill Justin Gaethje at this point. Paddy Pimblett, I love him, friend of the channel, but if we're being honest, he's probably sparking him in the first round at this point.
Paddy
BS,
Sparkilian. Yeah.
yeah. BSD, I think he's going to beat him too. I mean, Gamrot, Moicano. I'm talking about the guys that are like close to the top 10, and he runs through pretty much all of these besides Posh Boy Armin. But honestly, I think a good fight next for BSD, I would have him fight Paddy Pimblett. And I know a lot of people are saying Paddy should fight for the belt. I love Paddy, but beating Tony Ferguson, King Green, and Michael Chandler, I don't really think gets you a title fight at this point. Um, so I don't know. But this division definitely not as great as 170 right now. But I think it'll still be interesting because with Armin fighting Dan Hooker, we can talk about that fight a little bit later. I would assume that I would be very shocked if Armin doesn't win this fight. But Armin versus Ilya would be a fantastic matchup as well. And who knows what's next for BSD, but I think he could continue this run. I just don't know who he fights at the top because a lot of these guys I don't know. Like Justin Gaethje said, he's either going to fight for the belt or retire. So that doesn't really give him very many options. Max Holloway, do you think Max Holloway wants to go fight BSD right now? Probably
No,
not.
no. And I will say, I think Patty versus BSD is the only option and something I never thought about. And I love that idea. When you look at the
Thanks,
lightweight
man.
division, yeah, you're welcome. When you look at the lightweight division, everyone's either taken or they just fought, or they're Gaethje, Patty, and Armin. And so,
Hmm.
and or sorry, Armin versus Hooker. But Patty, when you look at the fighting for the belt, Patty and Gaethje are the only two guys brought up in that discussion that don't have a fight, and they're just waiting. And Gaethje said he's fighting for the belt or he's done. So if I'm Dana, I give in January the first Paramount card. Gaethje gets murdered in front of 100,000 people on Paramount Plus, by Ilya. You build up that hype, and then Paddy fights down, which he probably doesn't want to, but I do agree with you again. Michael Chandler, Bobby or King Green, as you would say, and Tony Ferguson, who is beyond washed. It's just not good enough, is it? I love Patty. I think he's better than people think, and we don't know how good Patty is. We really don't. We haven't seen him lose like that. So why not fight down? I mean, Dana, give him an ultimatum. You fight BSD, your best prospect in the division. Yep, yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like, but hypothetically, BSD's at 13 right now. Beneil's at 9. He moves up to 9. Dan Hooker's at 7. If he loses, there's no reason why BSD wouldn't be 8th, Patty 6th right now. Like, I think people have, like I said, we both big fans of Patty, but, and we don't know how good he is, but realistically, like, we can't just give the 6th guy the number one contender fight because there's no one else that wants to fight him right now. I think a 6 versus an 8 matchup, whoever wins that is completely in their right to get a championship fight next. Um, and at least a number one contender fight.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I will say BSD versus Patty would be a banger. That's a fight I
Hmm.
would love to watch. They both have incredible grappling. They both have underrated grappling. People think of them as like a power punching striker. They both have good striking, very underrated grappling. I honestly couldn't tell you how that fight would go. I think it would 100% end in a finish one way or another. Friend of the channel, Patty, I'd have to probably take him, but that would be a banger of a
Someone's
fight.
finishing.
Someone will be finished. But when you look at Beneil Dariush, someone that BSC just brutally finished, he beat your boy Renato Moicano. Dariush is just not. It was that.
Blatantly.
This was also a predictable outcome of a fight. The Sean Brady KO, the Leon KO, his first ever KO loss for Leon and Dariush were just terrible matchups for them against heavy, heavy punchers with heavy, heavy hands. So Dariush, I think he kind of has that CTE stare a little bit, where he's been finished a lot. Armin dominated him with a knee right up the middle. Charles destroyed him. BSD now not like was that the first punch landed in the fight, kind of got him like on the back of the skull and just knocked him out immediately. So if Darius wants to be a gatekeeper, I'd like to see him fight someone like Grant Dawson or maybe get Rufy a highlight KO. But Darius
Hmm.
is done. It's over. He never had the makings of a varsity athlete. It's done for him. But when you look at BSD going up, Darius going down, another theme was a shock of the night for over performances on the card. BSD and Morales, Prates, all these guys had banger moments in the card, banger KOs. So if you had one shock of the night where you were freaking out, you were shocked about the outcome, what would that be?
I mean, we're talking about a guy that stepped in on 48 hours notice. against one of the best prospects that we were expecting to see in the UFC at this point, in Malcolm Wellmaker. This guy comes in and, Dana gives him a call off of who even knows. I mean, this is a guy that fought last week in Uriah Faber's,
As a
um,
bantamweight, by the way.
yeah, in whatever Uriah Faber is, whatever promotion that is. And Ethan Ewing comes in and goes out there, beats Malcolm Wellmaker by decision, um, and just put on a fantastic performance. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he got signed after this, but I think he earned
Better be.
himself. He better have a contract after this. But absolutely, I honestly, I think I predicted Wellmaker to get a first round KO. Like I thought it was going to
I did
be, I
too.
think most people thought it was going to be an easy win for him on 48 hours notice. But yeah, fantastic performance and great job, kid. You got some big things coming for you.
He's older than you and you're calling him kid. Pure Dana White. He's ready for the job.
All right,
But
sorry, buddy.
it's okay, little bro. But Ethan Ewing moving up a division on just a few days. It was more like a 3 day or 2 day notice, let alone him being actually ready for this fight is absolutely absurd. I mean, I love the Wellmaker, the blue collar background, but he's got flaws in his game. He has one of the heaviest right hands in the division. No questions asked. Does he have any other talents? Not sure. He has such a low volume of striking where he kind of stands there and just waits for his right hook. Boom. It's kind of like a early Bo Nickel or an early Joe Pyfer, where these prospects
Mm.
switch over to MMA in Bo Nickel's case, and they have something they like and they can't get the rest of the stuff going. And just like Islam, you can't get your striking going if you don't have wrestling. You can't get your grappling going if you don't have wrestling. Everything kind of goes together. It is MMA. Wellmaker, I know he's newer to the sport, but man, he still looked good. I wouldn't say he's a failed prospect in the slightest. I think
Yeah.
Ewing is just really good, but he has some holes in his game that they need to be fixed ASAP. I think he's only been fighting for 6 or 7 years, so he should be ready to fix those holes ASAP.
I
But
would think, yeah, one more thing. I would compare it realistically, we'll have to see what happens, but I would compare it more to that Peyton Talbot loss. Like, I think he could easily bounce back. He just got dominated in one facet that he needs to improve on. But
who would you say is a better prospect right now, Peyton Talbot or Malcolm Wellmaker?
I think it's hard because Wellmaker has that power, which can get you really far. But I think I would take Talbot right now, especially after that last fight. I mean, when he gets a guy on the ground, that guy's going nowhere.
And Talbot likes to get men on the ground with him.
Very
But
good at
my
that.
overperformance of the night was Michael Morales. This guy's been dominating the prelim and the fight night scene for a long time now. He has a long wingspan and heavy hands, and he just lets it fly. It looks like he's never been punched in the face before. He's never lost a fight in his career, and it looks like he's having fun out there. He's not worried about the other guy. He's just swinging like it's a punching bag, and boy, has it worked so far. So I would give my shock of the night to Michael Morales, and I don't know who can stop him. I'd love to see him box someone like JDM. That would be like a boxing affair. That would be like a top of the card fight. But speaking of bottom of the card fight, flop of the night, underperformance. There was a few guys that had a tough time on 322, and I'll start with mine because we just brought him up. Malcolm Wellmaker sold my parlay. Only guy that had that much trouble that lost. He was a 450 favorite, I believe, almost 500 against. I know we've said how good Ethan Ewing is, and I think he's here to stay in the UFC, but Wellmaker, like, you got to be more well-rounded. He only had that overhand. He really struggled to show anything. He looked tired in the fight. I think that's got to be the biggest underperformance of the night.
Yeah. Like you said, there was definitely some quick knockouts. Since I had Ewing as the shock of the night, I didn't want to put Wellmaker as the underperformance. I didn't want to do both sides. But you definitely could say that. I would say I had Beneil Dariush because he definitely underperformed because he got knocked out in like one punch. So, unfortunate for him on this night. And despite absolutely eating that shot, with his face and getting knocked out, there wasn't really much else to look at for his performance. And then the final award is the prelim of the night, which is a surprising prospect, a guy in the prelims that performed not an over performance, but someone that really went out there and looked very good. And I had Bo Nickel. As we know, he was supposed to be on the main card, and then got booted off because people are always upset about that. But then he came out and had a fantastic knockout with that Leon Edwards-esque leg kick. And it just was a beautiful knockout for him. Something he really needed. Needed a finish in this fight, in my opinion, and a knockout does help his resume a lot more because we know how good he is at wrestling. Obviously, a submission win is great, but I think he wants to continue to build up that resume and prove that he can be a more well-rounded fighter. And with a knockout of that caliber, he definitely proved that, and was also having a very good performance before that as well. Wasn't like the Leon Edwards where he got lucky with one kick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was shocked by Bo Nickel. I will say that before I get on to my pick, Bo Nickel's had so much trouble with his striking development. It seems like he really struggles with setting up his hook. He loves that overhand. He throws his hooks from like an awkward mid angle, and they don't do that much power. He doesn't get close enough to land them, and he still struggles with the full MMA part. But I love that he's realistic about himself as a prospect. I know he's been placed on the main cards. He's had the hype placed onto him, a lot of pressure, but he obviously has incredible wrestling. I think this was the biggest development in his career so far. I mean, a head kick KO for Bo Nickel is awesome. I know Vieira is more of a grappler, but that was beautiful to see for Bo Nickel. By far his best and most promising performance yet. And he might be one of the only hopes for an American in the pound for pound top 10 in the future. So, a name to keep an eye on. But another guy to keep an eye on is someone we just brought up, Ethan Ewing. I mean, what a performance from the man. He just got signed. I don't know. I assume he might go back to bantamweight if he's cutting weight, which I mean that's even more promising for him if he's moving down. If he's moving up to beat Wellmaker and then maybe moving back down to bantamweight. Ewing was, we've talked about it enough. Like a few days' notice, up a division, like against Wellmaker, someone who's notorious for flatlining like pretty bad UFC guys in the first round with that right hook. So I was incredibly impressed. And Ewing is a name that whenever he gets a fight announcement, I will be putting that in my calendar. I want to see his ceiling and who knows how far he could go.
Yeah, I mean, from cutting 15, 10, however many pounds, at least 10 pounds in 48 hours, getting that call and going out there and having that performance was definitely a fantastic night for him. And like you said, I'm going to be very excited to see where he goes next and what is next for him. Um, but next, we will talk about some upcoming fights. One more thing, we didn't put this down, but I wanted to do the knockout of the night. I think out of all the knockouts we saw, we had some fantastic first round finish. Obviously, Morales went out there, BSD with a great finish, Carlo Prates with a great finish. I personally give it to John Pork with his knockout on Dylan Dennis.
Oh, wow, that's unexpected. There were a lot of great knockouts. I heard Dylan Dennis was showing a photo of manager Ali and Islam kissing each other. Some say it was AI. I think it could be real. I'm not really sure yet, but I will
That's
go
my
into
knockout of the
detail.
night.
Though, yeah, no, I do like that. I'll also give my knockout of the night. There was a ton of great ones. Bo Nickel gets the honorable mention, but another name I'd like to mention is Baisengar Susurkaev. I love this guy. He fought on 4 days notice in his debut, had a tough fight. He won it. He goes out here and flatlined. He looks so confident. He was given a little ollie fake with one, hitting with the other, a little boom pow action, and he looked great. And he flatlined Eric McConaughey. So another name to keep an eye on in the division. But
The
moving
manager
on,
Ali fake.
we have a little manager Ali is no
Uh,
fighter.
John
But
Pork.
moving on to John Pork, I am very excited for him. He had his bloody knuckles and that. But moving on to a banger, Dana loves to load up the Middle Eastern cards. This fight night, some could call it a pay-per-view. Who knows anymore with these numbered events and all this Paramount Plus. But this is an amazing card, better than some pay-per-views we've seen recently. At the top, you have Armin versus Dan Hooker and Bilal versus Gary. I would say Bilal Gary is the bigger fight here. I don't know if that's just me, but I think that deserves top billing. But maybe Armin is the more hyped guy out of all the four of them. So I cannot wait for this card. There's a few other names like Orobai, like Almabayev, like
Mhm.
Luke Riley, very promising Cage Warriors. The return of Horiguchi. Ilya's brother, Shamrock, a ton of exciting prospects. This is a fight night. Maybe you want to throw on for the prelims instead of having something else on. But when you look at the top two, the main two fights being marketed, if you can give a slight prediction, how do you think those two fights are going to go?
Are we talking about Shamil?
We're talking about Shamil Gaziev versus and the Orobai Hermanson fight.
Never mind. I scrolled to the top.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
good.
one thing I do want to say, I do agree. I think Ian Machado Gary versus Bilal. sh- I don't know if that's the main event. I think it's interesting because a lot of Armin, I think, is maybe the bigger draw, and I think Dan Hooker is a very big draw because people really like him. So I guess I understand why that's the main event, but I think I'm more excited for the Bilal Ian Gary fight, if that makes sense. Just because I honestly think Armin is one of the best like pound for pound guys in the UFC, and it's really unfortunate that we haven't seen him fight in a year and a half. So I hope he goes out there and has a great performance, but. I mean, I've said this before whenever we talked about this, probably a year and a half ago now. I thought he was the only guy that could really beat Islam. And now obviously another unbeatable guy in the division in Ilya. But I think Armin has a very, very, very high ceiling. So I think his performance this weekend should be very good. Another interesting one would be Ian Gary versus Bilal. I think he needs to have a good performance just based on what we saw with all those knockouts and finishes in the welterweight division this past weekend. So I think he is one of the guys that really needs to have a good performance, especially after what we saw from Carlos Prates, who almost finished him. Obviously, he beat Prates, but he has a lot to prove this weekend as well against the number one contender.
Yeah, I completely agree. I agree about Bilal versus Ian Gary. That's, I think, the biggest fight on this card, especially with the title implications. I wish Armin fought Islam again. I would have loved to see that fight where the 300 fight where Oliveira, if Armin didn't take off his pants in the middle of the fight, Charles, who knows if he wins that fight. Armin is clearly talented, but he fights like once a year, man. He hasn't fought in over a year. I just want to see him fight. I'm happy he's fighting Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, I don't know what goes on in his head, but it seems like he spars like with no mouth guard, no gloves, and just throws just like his little New Zealand competitions. But it seems like he's had a broken hand for like 2 years because he keeps sparring on it. So I'm not really sure what he's doing. He has a ton of grit. He has a good chin. I think Armin is such a mismatch in this fight. I mean, I hope Dan Hooker lands an insane KO, but I just don't think it's gonna happen. I think this is JDM Islam uh B version where Armin is just going to dominate on the ground the entire fight. But when you look at Ian Gary versus Bilal Muhammad, a fight I think is going to be a lot closer. I don't know how this fight's going to go. I'm very high on Ian Gary. I think he's one of the best prospects. People forget, I mean, he just beat Protez, but he's very big. He's 4 inches taller than Bilal Muhammad. He has a longer reach. He's a lot bigger than Bilal in every way, every single way. And Ian Gary, I will say, he had that little vegan weird era with his wife going on. Like he got a ton of hate for a certain few actions. I'll leave it at that. But I've been a big fan of Ian Gary. He looks like he's actually adding on muscle. I hope he stopped his wife's boyfriend from being his trainer. But he looks like a much better prospect on he's been training with Chute Box in Brazil for a long time now. It seems like he has good grappling. Seems like we know how good his striking is. He wrestled someone like MVP to fend them off. So I cannot wait for this belt. I will say to defend Bilal, he chose to strike. I don't know why, because JDM was stifling all his takedowns. He chose to strike with JDM. Yes, he got pieced up. Yes, his face ballooned up and was destroyed and bloody. But he was standing there and banging with JDM. I respected that, and I think this fight is going to be so exciting. I hope Bilal has a more exciting fight style like that, because that fight was a banger on JDM's behalf. I think if Bilal wants to go out here and strike with Ian Gary, it might not be the best idea for him, but I would love to see that, and I think a lot more people would like Bilal if he goes out there and tries to knock out Ian Gary.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Bilal if he does lose this fight, especially like we said with that older guard. What would happen with a 36-year-old Bilal if he loses this? But our next card after that, the final pay-per-view of the year. Merab versus Piotr Jan 2, Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van, Jan versus Bogdan Guskov, Brandon Moreno versus Taira Tatsuru, and some other great guys on here as well. Ivo Aslan, a guy who I believe we highlighted as a next man up candidate. This year should have a good performance, maybe. Obviously, that last performance that he had wasn't too great. Maybe looking back on it at 0-2 this year, he probably shouldn't have been one of the candidates for the next man up. But maybe he'll come back in this fight. And one of your boys in Chris Duncan, not Chris Leroy Duncan, but just regular Chris Duncan,
My boy.
against friend of the channel, Terrence McKinney, obviously, with his connections as well, to a man in Kevin Holland.
Yeah, a few things to mention. Ebo Aslan was definitely your idea for next man
Yep.
up award. But hey, hindsight 2020. But when you look at this card, going back to 321, even I know in hindsight didn't look great. 320 also, but there's been some banger cards here. 322 and 323 are 2 weeks apart, basically, and this is an incredible card. It really is from top down. And when you go to Paramount coming up, Ilya possibly coming up in January. There's so many fights to be excited about. But starting at the bottom, just some fights to highlight. Nazim Sadikov has been one of the best strikers and underrated guys in the UFC for a while. Mansur Abdul Malik, also a very talented prospect. McKinney versus Duncan. That's kind of like our boys going against each other. That's going to be hey, you know how McKinney does it. It's either kill or be killed within the first minute. Grant Dawson's a beast. Jalen Turner, the return of Jalen Turner. We got Marvin Vettori, like Cejudo Talbot. Strange fight. Who know? Do you have any predictions on how that's gonna go?
Which one? The Macy Barber fight?
I know you wanted to talk about that later. I was gonna save that
Yeah,
later.
okay.
But
Yeah, no, the
Cejudo Talbot.
Cejudo Talbot fight, that's one that when it got announced, I think we were both surprised,
Yeah.
that Henry Cejudo, this is his retirement fight against Peyton Talbot. We talked about, is he one of the best prospects? He'll have the opportunity to show it here. Two guys that really love to get down and wrestle and grapple. So this should be an interesting fight overall. I honestly don't even know where to lean on this one. Like Cejudo, I think is a lot better. We're talking about like a what th two division champion at the same time, simultaneous, three championship belts for him, Triple C. But if Payton Talbot can win this fight, yes, Cejudo is probably washed at this point, but that's still going to be a massive, massive win for him in his career. But yeah, I mean, this whole card is absolutely insane. As well, we can talk about kind of the main card, if we want to highlight those, starting off with Moreno versus Taira Tatsuru.
Yeah, Tatsuro Taira is an absolute beast. I think we both fell in love with him a long time ago. He's a beast in that division, but I mean, Royval showed him the levels. He kind of we were both hoping for a Asakura Taira title fight in Japan. I think that would have been awesome. Not even close to happening anymore. Also, another name I'd like to say from the last card is Horiguchi. Signed him back to the UFC. He's against, uh, I think it's is it Aliskerov or he's against a very good Dagestani. I believe it's Aliskerov, and I don't know why they're kind of feeding him to the wolves in his first fight back. I was hoping it would be Kaya Sakura versus Horiguchi, but going back to Tetsuro Taira, Moreno, that's a tough fight. Royval, he kind of beat up Tyra. It was a fun fight, close fight. Tyra showed heart, but this fight is going to be very close, I think. I'm still taking the boy Tatsuro Tyra. I think he only grew from his last fight. He has a good chin. And then going up one more, and then we'll talk about the top two. But Jan Blachowicz is a guy that gets forgotten, maybe because of his age, but Blachowicz is still very talented. He possibly beat Pereira. And Bogdan Guskov is a guy that most people don't even know. He kind of looks like a creative fighter, UFC, before you put any tattoos or hairstyles on him. But every single fight on this main card is going to be a banger. I'm kind of leaning towards Blachowicz and Tyra, but Guskov could come out there and shock Jan.
Yeah, I mean, Guskov, what, 15 wins by knockout in his 18 wins. This guy is an absolute killer. in this division and could make a name for himself this weekend, or I guess not this weekend, this pay-per-view, which is coming up very soon. Like we said, there's not going to be much time in between what we just saw and this next one, which will be great. But I think Tatsuro Taira, hopefully he goes out there and wins that fight as well. Continue that legacy run and this legacy comeback season for him. Moreno is a tough fight, but I do think that there's definitely some things that Tyra could improve on, and I think he will come out and show that he has improved on those. And well, I guess technically this could be the number one contender fight, right? Is that fair enough to say? This is the number one contender fight?
Tyra Moreno.
Yeah.
I believe. I mean, I guess it all depends with the future of Pantoja, where we'll get into our picks on that. But I still do think, if Pantoja wins, I think he's moving up for Marab. So I think this could be the winner of this fight could very well be fighting for the belt in their next fight. I'll leave it at that. But I guess I'll
So
also,
it would be a number one contender fight, is what you're saying.
yeah, yeah.
Because the winner would that would be the yeah, that would mean that they were the number one contender for the championship and would be fighting for the championship.
I mean, not in the moment, but I think that will be. I think it will be. Yes, it will be the
But
number.
if no, but if Pantoja stays, I think the winner of this fights for the belt next, no matter what. Whether he stays or leaves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying now. I would agree with that. Yes, I
Okay,
do think
okay,
that. It's
okay.
gonna be. I mean, I don't know. Does Moreno get another chance though? Is kind of what I was thinking.
I guess I don't really know what else they can do at that point. So
Yeah,
that's a
that's
tough
kind of
one.
what I was trying to say is like I think if Tyra
Yeah,
wins 100%, he gets a title shot. If it's against Van, that could be a banger against Pantoja if Pantoja wins that.
banger.
But I don't know if Moreno, I think he should just stay as a gatekeeper, maybe even if he wins that fight. But either way, Pantoja versus Van, Marab versus Yan. Pantoja, Van, I'm a big flyweight guy. This fight is like absolute heaven for the division. I've been
And
watching Joshua Van for a long time. He's kind of like Wellmaker, where he just started fighting MMA in the last few years. And that man can box, that man can throw, no regard for human life, including his own. But this is going to be an incredible fight. Pantoja still is one of the most underrated champions of the modern era in the UFC. He defends his belt, he goes balls to the wall every single time. I cannot wait for this fight. I'm going to say right now, I love both guys. I think Pantoja is winning this fight. I think Van is so reckless. He loves to strike. I think Pantoja is going to go with him there, but I think Pantoja is going to go every last effort, every last muscle he has is going to be dedicated to this fight. And I think in round five, if we get there, round four, I don't know if Van's ready for that. And I think Pantoja's been tested. He's been battle tested. He might be taking Van down, seeing how tired he is, and maybe sinking in a choke on Van late.
yeah, no, I have Pantoja by submission in this fight. I think we could see a similar performance in this to what we just saw with Islam and JDM. Pantoja, the difference between these two is that Van is a very, very good striker. We know that. But Pantoja is a very underrated striker as well. But I would say they're closer in striking than they are in grappling. Pantoja absolutely has the ground game on lock on this one. And like you said, we don't know how far Joshua Van can go. This isn't a guy in which we'll talk about next in Jan versus Marab, where, we've seen Marab go. We know that he can go that far. But Joshua Van, a lot younger in this division, a lot younger as a fighter, and just hasn't got that opportunity to go those 5 rounds yet. And at 24, obviously, he has a very bright future ahead of him no matter what happens. But I think Pantoja just might have too much skill for him at this moment. And as we've talked about, Pantoja has been a fantastic champion so far. We'll have to see what the takedown defense of Van is, because if he can go out there and defend those takedowns, then it's a very interesting fight. But I think Pantoja is just too skilled in this to lose.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the same thing almost with Wellmaker, where people, experienced vets, can find the gaps in your game when you're newer. And Pantoja is so good, man. His striking, his chin is a very underrated part. And I like what you said about his striking. It's very true. He's a very confident striker. He goes in there full effort. he's throwing, and I know Van is too, but I think Pantosia's gonna. They're both gonna gas out. Pantosia's gonna get rocked early. He's gonna stay in there, and he's gonna bring the fight to the ground and win the fight. But a very similar fight, honestly. A dominant champion versus a very promising wrestler is Merab versus Jan. And this is a fight. A lot of people they knew it was in the mix for possibly being a fight, but some people kind of thought it was out of nowhere. Where Jan, he's maybe the unluckiest fighter in the UFC in terms of wins and losses, but he is one of the best boxers. He has a ton of talent, and this is a big stylistic mismatch for Petr Yan. Obviously, he's been taken down like hundreds of, maybe 100 times in the UFC officially, like 50 straight times, some would say. So who knows if that's going to go this way again, but Merab has looked more as dominant as anyone ever in the UFC. So I think Jan he definitely has decent wrestling, but he has great boxing. Who knows if he can win this fight? I think Merab is just too good.
Yeah, like you said, similar fight. I think Marab just is just too skillful to lose this fight as well. Um, and obviously, as we know, 49 takedown attempts in that first fight for Marab. Also, one thing that I feel like isn't brought up as much is that yes, he had 49 takedowns. He also had 338 significant strikes. That was just an absolutely dominant performance from top to bottom, right? We have 49 takedowns that he shot, still got 11 of them, and threw 401 total strikes and landed 200 of them. Like that was just an absolute dominant performance. And when I look at this, I think Jan has, he's got better. I think Marab has also got better, which is kind of scary because I could be wrong here. This could backfire, but I don't give Jan any chance in this fight. I really don't think there's anyone in the division that could really beat Merab besides maybe like a Sean O'Malley if he gets an opportunity. But
Yeah, Sean O'Malley definitely needs an opportunity. We can agree on that, but
yep,
I do agree. Merab is just so good, and Jan, like it's gonna be. I mean, you got to give Marab someone. If he's gonna be this active, I love it. You can't argue with
yeah,
that. But I think what we could see is kind of like what we saw against Sandhagen, where Jan is kind of he has good striking. He's okay. He's well rounded. But I think Marab's gonna go out there. Once he gets Jan tired, I think he's gonna start striking recklessly. He knows that he has the cardio advantage. I think it could be crazy, but I think Marab is he's kind of bored. I think he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna knock out the one of the best boxers in the division. And I think Merab,
mhm.
he almost KO'd Sandhagen. It was very close, but I think Merab's gonna go out there and try and knock out Petr Yan. It could go wrong. Yan could land something, but I think Merab is just too good, and he's gonna dominate this fight any way he wants.
Yeah, I think the only way that Merab loses, obviously joking about Sean O'Malley, but a guy like that, like the only way that I see him losing is, he gets a little too overconfident and goes up against a striker like that, and they land that punch that knocks him out, that lucky punch. But I think there's not very many guys in the division that can really do that to him. That's the thing. Like cousin Umar, I know a lot of people like to say that first fight was close, but I don't know. I really don't think that Umar can beat him. I think he's one of the only guys that would have a chance at this point, but I don't. We even saw how good Mario Bautista looked against Umar, and a lot of people were crediting how good Mario looked. But at the same time, it's like if Mario Bautista fought Marab, I don't think it's going to be particularly close either. I just don't see anyone that can beat Marab right now. I think Pantoja, if we could have like a perfect fight, I would love to see Marab versus Pantoja at 130, like right in the middle. So no, if neither guy had a weight advantage, I think that would be perfect. Pound for pound, if we could do Marab versus Pantoja, I think that would be an absolutely insane fight to see as well. And another one, I think the only guy that realistically could have beat him is if Marab went up to 145 when Ilya was still at 145. That's the only real scenario I could see him losing.
Yeah, I was just about to mention. I think the next man up is going to be I think Umar does deserve one more shot. I think he does. He got
Mhm.
dominated, no questions asked. He was getting emoted on. Merab was having fun in there. You give him one more shot. He's the only guy in the entire division in the world at 135. I would 100% say that has the grappling and the striking. to keep up with Merab. However, it didn't work last time. It wasn't even close to working. But the two other names I was going to mention is one, Pantoja. He
Oh,
beats Van and he moves up to bantamweight at 135. I think that would be an awesome fight to watch. But uh, Merab, I'm not sure what you're saying, but Merab, uh, Pantoja would be an absolute banger. I would love to see that. Pantoja is one of my favorite fighters, underrated guys. Who knows? I think he could easily go out there and like sub Merab, or he could easily go out there and just get wrestle fricked 100 times by Merab. But the one name I was thinking was not Ilya, that would be a banger of a fight, but was actually Volkanovski at
okay.
featherweight. Let's say
I could
this
see that.
hypothetically. If Vlaev, does he deserve that title shot? Maybe. Who knows? I think Volk's gonna fight very soon. I think February is kind of I'm penciling that in for if we get Ilya. It could be on the Paramount card in January. Maybe we get an Ilya Volk card together. Maybe Volk headlines in February. But whether it's Lerone Murphy, whether it's Evlaev, let's say Volk wins that. Could we see Merab moving up to take on Volk? And the reason why I bring this up, I've thought a lot about this. Merab goes up. Obviously, stronger guy in the division. Volk is an incredible wrestler. And Volk, that would be the only time in Volk's life where he's the bigger man in there, or maybe not, maybe similar sized man in there. Volk has been undersized in almost every fight in his entire life. He goes out there. Volk has incredible wrestling. He was doing okay against Islam Makhachev as a 145er in their first time around. You put Volk in there. When I mentioned Umar's the only guy that has the striking and the wrestling, Volk might be a second option there. Volk's an incredible striker and wrestling. Obviously, Volk is not on his peak, but he's still a champ. He showed it against Lopez. He has a chin. He has the wrestling. Why not? Hey, either you're cementing Volk's legacy or Merab's legacy. I think that would be another super fight to look at if Merab clears out Umar and Pantoja.
Yeah, one name I was thinking was maybe Peyton Talbot.
Um, Interesting. I think Peyton Talbot is gonna have to get through Henry Cejudo's wrestling to see about Merab. But I would like to say that when you look at Merab's activity, let's say this. I mean, Merab's fighting. He's fighting Jan. I'm gonna say he wins. I'm just gonna pencil that in. It's probably what, February, March. He wants to fight again. Pantoja. He wins that. He wants to fight again. Volk in July. If Volk fights in January, February, he might be ready for the next Marab fight. The next time Marab's ready, and another additional fight in the meanwhile. So I think the timelines add up, and that would be so much fun in the bottom. As these guys get older, Volk, Pantoja, even Marab, they have less fights left. Not in Marab's case when he fights 5 times a year, but. I think that would be a great way to kind of merge them before maybe they leave their time as champs.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the timeline you're giving me is that next year Marab could go out there, clear the division, and then go fight the champion at 125 and 145.
I
That's what I'm
think
hearing.
I think it's a possibility, and if Marab does that, is he the UFC GOAT? I think they're
I think that could definitely be up there for second.
behind Kevin Holland. So thank you guys.
I guess the one thing here is that he would move up to 145, right? But he
He
would
would.
stay at 135
Uh, it,
to
in
fight
my complete
Pantoja.
hypothetical scenario, Pantoja moves up.
Okay.
He beats Pantoja if that happens, and then
Uh-huh.
Marab moves up to 145, takes on Vote for the featherweight belt.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would kind of be stopping him from obviously if he stayed at 135, cleared the division, went down to 125, won the belt, and then went up to 145 and won the belt, then that would be pretty undeniable. Obviously, I don't think he could go down to 125. But
No.
I
Have you
think,
seen his 135 weight
yeah,
cuts? I don't think it's
yeah.
possible.
But yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic to see that. Even if it's not for a belt, like even if he just wants to fight
Oh,
Volk
Joe.
for the fun of I mean,
He fights his bullet.
unfortunately, we'll never see that fight. But yeah, there's definitely some great fights ahead in the UFC. We will have a lot of bangers coming up. And I'm glad you guys spent this time with us, and we will be seeing you guys in the next episode, which will be the final episode of the year. And then after that, well, I guess technically not the final episode of the year. We will have our year-end awards as we always do, as well. So if you guys are watching at this point, make sure to put down in the comments below. We'll probably put a community tab post out as well for some awards you guys want to see. That could probably help out as well. But we'll see you guys in the next episode in just a few weeks.
Peace.